It's not by chance that you're viewing this video. There's a reason you're here. Everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Trust the timing of your life and know that you're being led to where you're meant to be. As you stumble on this video, perhaps not by chance, it will serve to awaken your spirit. The war within you has shifted, not into defeat, but into strength. You did not stumble upon this message by chance. Your spirit summoned it, for it resonates with your journey. You have confronted your darkest demons and emerged victorious. Now something extraordinary is awakening within you, a power so authentic and formidable that even the darkness which once pursued you now retreats in your presence. You were not born into power, nor was strength ever freely given to you. You earned it, in silence, through fire, and amid the shadows. You have weathered storms that could have destroyed you. You have faced demons, not merely the ones that haunt the realm of dreams, but those that exist in the tangible world. Betrayal, abuse, addiction, depression, loneliness, and shame. But here lies the truth. You did not merely survive, you conquered. You overcame every force that sought to break you, and now they fear you. This is your story. This is your ascension. This is the moment you became untouchable by the very darkness that once sought to consume you. Let us now unfold your journey, chapter by chapter, so that you may fully grasp the immense weight of all you have endured and triumphed over. Before we begin, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe, for this message is intended for the chosen, those who have walked through darkness, confronted their demons, and now rise with a power that can no longer be stopped. If this message resonates deeply within you, comment with the number 77. This number is more than just a symbol, it is a declaration. It serves as a signal to the universe that you have endured your darkest moments and have emerged as someone to be reckoned with. Only those who are truly chosen will remain until the very end. And to them, the universe will grant what they have long been seeking: clarity, confirmation, and a transformation so powerful that its impact will echo beyond this lifetime. Truth does not reveal itself all at once, but unfolds gradually, layer by layer. So return to this message whenever your inner fire begins to fade. With each return, a stronger and wiser version of yourself will rise. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. When the demons came for you, they did not arrive during moments of strength or stability. They did not wait until you were fortified by wisdom or surrounded by the comfort of support. Instead, they appeared when you were at your most vulnerable, fractured, exposed, and disconnected from your sense of self. They came when your soul was silently bleeding behind forced smiles, when your inner light had grown dim, and when every step forward felt impossibly heavy. They did not announce themselves with fire and horns. Rather, they wore disguises. They manifested as doubt whispering from within your own mind, as guilt rooted in your past, and as shame that clung to you like a second skin. They spoke in the voices of those you once trusted, infiltrating your spirit in the quietest, most deceptive ways. They appeared not as monsters, but as familiar faces, lovers who betrayed you, friends who abandoned you, and family who never truly saw or understood you. They emerged through systems designed to confine you, to keep you small and silent. Their presence was subtle, cloaked in whispers that echoed within your own mind, speaking in a voice that mimicked your own, convincing you that you were unworthy, unlovable, and invisible. They told you that healing was beyond your reach, that you were too damaged, too far gone. They insisted that the traumas you endured had permanently defined you, that no one could ever truly comprehend the depth of your pain or the heavy burden you carried in silence. They persuaded you that silence was safety, that fading into the background was easier than being seen, that your voice held no value, and that you were utterly alone. And for a time, perhaps you believed them. You withdrew from the world. You isolated yourself, concealed your truth, smiled in public while breaking down in private. You poured your energy into others, leaving nothing for yourself. You pleaded for signs, for relief, for any indication that you were not drowning in your struggle alone. And yet, despite everything, something deep within you refused to die. Even in your most exhausted moments, even when tears fell without warning, even when you stood surrounded by people, yet felt entirely invisible, There remained a quiet, unyielding spark inside you that would not go out. Something deeper, something ancient and eternal, continued to breathe within you. It was a flicker of soul fire, a distant yet unshakable memory of your true essence. A quiet whisper echoed from within, softly affirming, "This is not the end." That voice, that enduring spark, was your truest self, the part of you they could never reach, the part the demons feared most. For as long as that flame remained, they knew their victory was impossible. And so they pressed harder. They unleashed more pain, more triggers, more setbacks, all in the hope that you would finally surrender. But you did not. You bent beneath the weight, but you did not break. You screamed into the darkness, but you did not quit. You collapsed in exhaustion, but you rose again. And in rising, in continuing despite it all, you initiated their defeat. Because they never expected you to survive. They never anticipated your endurance, nor did they imagine that you would rise from the ruins. They underestimated your spirit, and now they know the truth. The chosen one does not remain fallen forever. The chosen one rises. And the very moment you made the decision to keep breathing, to keep moving forward, to keep hoping even when your hands were empty and your heart was weary, that was the moment the darkness began to lose its power. They came for you in your weakest hour, believing it would be your end. But what they failed to see was that even in your weakness you remained sacred, resilient, and undeniably divine. Chapter 2. The silent battles no one saw. Your struggle was not one fought with swords, shields, or any of the conventional tools of war. There were no banners raised, no headlines written, no crowds gathered to bear witness, nor any cries of support or resistance echoing through the air. Instead, there was only silence. Profound, consuming silence, and you standing alone within it. Your battlefield was not a physical one, but rather the vast, often overwhelming space between your thoughts. It was the persistent weight pressing against your chest each morning as you awoke, the leaden heaviness that settled deep within your bones at the thought of facing yet another day. Your wounds did not bleed outwardly. Instead, you suffered internally, your pain hidden beneath a composed exterior. These were invisible injuries, inflicted in silence, unnoticed by those around you. Perhaps because you appeared too strong, too gentle, too seemingly whole to ever be suspected of falling apart. Despite everything inside you screaming for you to disappear, you showed up, laughing in rooms where your spirit was aching, listening and giving to others while your soul starved for someone to simply ask, "Are you really okay?" Fighting anxiety behind a smile, depression beneath deadlines, and loneliness in rooms full of people, sitting at dinner tables pretending to be fine even though your heart was breaking with every bite. Carrying memories you couldn't share, mourning losses no one could see, and battling your own mind with intrusive thoughts, what-ifs, shame, and guilt. All while still being expected to function. And you did. You got up again and again, though no one saw how much effort it took just to get out of bed, to take a shower, to send that one text, to go outside and pretend the world hadn't collapsed inside you. You cried in the bathroom and composed yourself in the mirror, screamed into pillows, whispered prayers into the darkness without knowing if anything or anyone was listening, questioned your worth, your purpose, and your place in this world. Made it through days where every breath felt like a battle. And still, no one saw. But that didn't mean it wasn't real. Because they saw the demons you were fighting. They saw everything. The moments you almost gave up. The nights you lay awake, hollowed out and numb. The mornings you stared at the ceiling, wondering if you could survive another day like this. And they saw, and they feared. Why? Because despite the pain and the silence, you stayed in the fight. Didn't quit on yourself, didn't let the darkness win, and that terrified them as they realized something profound. You weren't just resilient, you were relentless, and your will to keep going, even when it made no sense, and even when there was no guarantee of healing, was a form of sacred rebellion and a power they couldn't touch. Because silent battles reveal true warriors, and while the world may have overlooked your suffering, the universe honored your courage, so although there were no medals or grand recognition, you emerged from those silent wars with something far rarer, a soul forged in fire, a quiet strength, and an unshakable light. And now, every step you take is proof that the darkness didn't win. You did. Chapter 3. The moment you stood up. There's always a moment. And although to the outside world it might not have looked like much, with no lightning striking, no crowds cheering, and no big announcement echoing through the air, everything changed within your spirit. Whether it happened in the middle of a breakdown or in silence after one too many sleepless nights, whether it was a whisper rather than a roar, it was final because you decided that enough was enough. Enough of pretending, enough of shrinking, enough of carrying burdens that weren't yours, enough of letting the past control your future, enough of replaying the same pain on a loop hoping something would magically change, and enough of letting fear run the show. It may have started with something simple, a journal entry, a prayer, or a tearful conversation. Or maybe you blocked a number, walked away from an unhealthy situation, or finally looked in the mirror and said, "No more." Setting boundaries that cost you people, and making choices that scared you. Beginning to heal, not because it was easy, but because staying broken was killing your soul. Stopping the need to explain yourself to those who never truly saw you. Choosing peace over approval, truth over silence, and growth over comfort. Picking up the broken pieces of yourself and saying, "I'll build with this." Ceasing to wait for permission to be whole, and instead starting to become whole anyway. Realizing that your healing wasn't loud but sacred, raw, and powerful. Not about becoming someone new, but finally returning to who you were before the world told you otherwise. That moment you stood up wasn't just personal but spiritual, sending a shockwave through the darkness, causing the same demons that once whispered lies to you to now watch in silence because they felt the shift, the authority returning to your voice, the clarity in your steps, the fire reigniting in your eyes, as you stopped begging to be saved and instead became your own rescue. No longer looking outside for validation, remembering that your worth was never up for debate. And that's when the fear began, not in you, but in them. Because a chosen one who stands up cannot be manipulated, cannot be silenced with guilt, fear, or shame. And because a chosen one who stands up remembers who they are, and that remembrance is the beginning of freedom, you didn't need to scream or prove anything. Instead, your energy shifted, causing the chains that once held you to no longer fit, the cage that confined you to begin cracking, and your light to break through the lies, not becoming perfect, but becoming powerful, real, rooted, and unshakable. As you took your story back and, in doing so, reclaimed your destiny, stopped merely surviving and started creating, stopped hiding and started shining. That moment, no matter how quiet, reshaped your entire path as you stepped into alignment with your purpose. And even when your hands were still trembling, you rose with faith, not certainty, and that made you unstoppable. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, but the refusal to be ruled by it. The moment you stood up was the moment your true story began. Not the story written by pain, but the one authored by power. Not the one controlled by fear, but the one rising with fire. And from that moment forward, the game changed, because once a chosen one stands, they never bow again. Chapter 4. Becoming what they feared. You were not merely in the process of healing, rather you were undergoing a profound and transformative evolution. This was not a superficial or cosmetic change, but a deep, soul-altering metamorphosis, one that reached into the very core of your being. You were not turning into someone else. Instead, you were finally emerging as your truest self, the version of you that had long been buried beneath layers of unhealed wounds, inherited falsehoods, societal conditioning, and the countless masks you were forced to wear in order to survive. No longer did you plead for others to recognize your worth. Instead, you turned inward and began to see yourself, clearly, fully, and unapologetically. You no longer chased the approval of those who had never truly recognized or understood your worth. Instead, you began to cultivate an identity grounded in self-respect rather than self-sacrifice. The habit of people-pleasing, once driven by fear or the desire to belong, was not abandoned out of bitterness or rebellion, but out of a sacred and necessary act of self-preservation. You came to understand that your inner peace was not a luxury, it was essential. Your energy was valuable, and your boundaries were not walls designed to isolate, but shields constructed to protect something immeasurably precious: your soul. You stopped silencing your intuition, the quiet, unwavering voice within you that had never steered you wrong. Instead, you began to truly listen to it, to honor its wisdom, and to follow its guidance, even when it defied logic, even when it pulled you away from the comfort of the familiar and into the uncertainty of the unknown. In doing so, you did not reclaim your power through aggression or force, but through alignment, with your truth, your purpose, and your deepest knowing. In the course of that journey, you transformed into what darkness fears the most: a soul ignited by purpose, a spirit unwavering in its refusal to bow. You became a presence that naturally shifts the energy of every room you enter, not because you are loud, but because you are authentic. They feared the clarity of your vision. They feared the healing power within you. Most of all, they feared your light, for your light illuminated the shadows they sought to conceal. The very forces that once mocked you, shamed you, and tried to keep you small began to tremble, not because you grew louder, but because you ceased to live in survival mode. You chose instead to live in your truth. You found your voice, began to share your story, and embraced your scars without shame. There is nothing that terrifies the darkness more than an individual who no longer has anything to hide. Someone who has shed the weight of secrecy, released the burden of shame, and stepped fully into the light of truth. Darkness thrives in silence, nourishes itself in secrecy, and draws its power from the quiet suffering of those too afraid to speak. Yet you made a different choice. You chose to raise your voice rather than remain silent. You chose to shine brightly instead of dimming your light to make others comfortable. You chose to rise above the pain, the trauma, and the expectations meant to confine you. Your healing was not merely a private or personal endeavor, it was a radical, revolutionary act. You were not just reclaiming your own life or recovering your lost pieces. You were dismantling deeply rooted systems of generational pain that had long gone unchallenged. You were actively breaking the chains of inherited trauma, reversing the momentum of ancestral suffering, and courageously rewriting the narratives that had been imposed upon your lineage. In doing so, you were not simply healing. You were unlocking doors that had remained closed for centuries. Doors of liberation, truth, and possibility for all those who would come after you. You became the living embodiment of prayers that were softly whispered into existence long before you ever took your first breath. Prayers spoken by those who came before you, carrying hope for a future they might never see. And those who once sought to diminish you, to break your spirit and bend your will, slowly began to lose their grip. Not because they had weakened, but because they could no longer manipulate someone who had come to recognize their inherent worth. They found themselves powerless to confuse a mind firmly anchored in truth, unable to gaslight a soul that had learned to listen more closely to its own inner wisdom than to the chaos and clamor of the external world. That strength, the quiet, unwavering, radiant power you now carry, was never something granted by the world, and for that reason, it is not something the world could ever take away. It was never born of validation, permission, or praise. It was always there, residing deep within you, waiting to be remembered, reclaimed, and revealed. And now at last it is no longer hidden. Now it burns bright with life. Now it can be seen, clearly, unmistakably, by all who encounter you. And what they see is not weakness, it is not brokenness. It is fire, pure, sacred, and unstoppable. A fire that cleanses, a fire that shines bright, a fire that guides others back to safety. You didn't just endure your demons, you became the force that made them think twice before returning. Because you're no longer their prey, you are their greatest fear. Chapter 5. Now, as the tables have turned and they run from you, something they never saw coming, but which you anticipated and felt even before it occurred. Sensing the subtle shift and the quiet yet undeniable rise within yourself. The very things that once held power over you, controlled your emotions, clouded your decisions, and shook the foundation of your being, have now become distant and almost foreign. The triggers that previously sent you spiraling can now be identified and recognized in an instant. What once made you doubt yourself now feels like a shadow with no hold over you, for you see them coming. the doubts, the fears, the old toxic patterns, and you name them for what they truly are. Distractions and the temptations that once had the power to derail you no longer have any grip, so you don't fall for them or even entertain them anymore. Your discernment is sharp now, your boundaries fortified, and where you once trembled in the face of chaos, now they tremble in the presence of your peace. And where you once cowered in silence, now you stand empowered by your voice. The fear that once paralyzed you has now been transformed into fuel, and the darkness that formerly whispered lies to you has become the very thing that shrinks back in the light of your confidence. As the power dynamics have shifted so dramatically that what once held you captive now cowers in your presence. And you are no longer the hunted but the storm that rises above it all. The force that breaks through the barriers they tried to build. The one they underestimated, the one they thought they could control and wear down. The darkness which knows your name no longer whispers it in dark corners hoping to catch you off guard, but instead shudders at the very mention of you. For they no longer see you as prey, but recognize you as a genuine threat. You are the one who can no longer be manipulated, seduced, or silenced. The one who stands unwavering in your truth and power, embodying the very light they feared, the light that shines so brightly it forces shadows to retreat, because they cannot stop you, break you, or even touch you, having been outgrown, outlasted, and outsmarted by you. Where you were once small and hidden, you are now bold and visible. And where you once felt unworthy and helpless, you now walk with unshakable confidence grounded firmly in the truth of who you are. You now see through their lies, and their tricks no longer work on you, for you have become what they never wanted you to be. A force that cannot be stopped. A force that shines, rises, grows, and disrupts, transforming into the storm they could never predict and the power they never expected to encounter. Indeed, the very things that once stalked and haunted you are now the things that fear you, making you the storm they never saw coming and causing them to run from you. Because you are a chosen one who stands tall amidst adversity, who fights back fiercely with unwavering truth, whose formidable energy commands respect and alters the very fabric of the game forever. Those very individuals who once sought to break you now find themselves attempting to avoid your presence. No longer the vulnerable prey in this narrative, you have transformed into the powerful predator, the master and author of your own story. Chapter 6. As you continue to rise, awakening to your truth, and stepping fully into your purpose, it becomes increasingly evident that your transformation is no longer a solely personal journey, but rather a contagious force that radiates outward. What began as a subtle, internal shift, quiet, almost imperceptible even to yourself, is now creating powerful ripples in the world around you, unconsciously inspiring and influencing others in profound ways you may not yet fully comprehend. For simply by existing authentically, standing unwavering in your convictions and refusing to retreat in the face of challenge, you are igniting chain reactions of awakening, empowerment, and change in those whose lives intersect with your own. Those who once lived in self-doubt, who previously believed that change was an unattainable dream reserved for others, are now beginning to rediscover their own strength and believe in themselves once more. All because your story, marked not only by your victories, but also by your scars, your suffering, and your survival, is no longer merely a personal narrative, but rather a powerful key capable of unlocking the hidden potential within others. For with every act of truth you share, with every challenge you confront and overcome, you are not only blazing a trail through adversity, but also forging a visible, walkable path for others to follow, offering them, often without words, a profound and unspoken permission to heal from their own wounds, to embrace growth where once there was only stagnation, and to rise up with courage and determination to fight for a transformation of their own. You have evolved into something far greater than merely a survivor. You have become a leader, not by deliberate intention or pursuit of authority, but because the sheer force of your courage commands attention and responsibility, and your unwavering resilience emanates so powerfully that it naturally draws others from the shadows of their despair, compelling them to awaken to their own strength and step boldly into their latent power. For when people look at you, they do not merely see a person who endured, but rather they witness a living embodiment of what they once believed to be impossible. a testament to what can emerge when one refuses to remain shattered, when one chooses to heal fully and fiercely, proving that wholeness is still within reach after pain, that rebirth is possible even from ruin. And in doing so, you become not only a radiant light illuminating the way, but also a mirror, reflecting back to others the greatness they have yet to claim, the strength they have long forgotten, and the worth they must never again doubt. You serve as a powerful reminder to others that the radiant light they observe, burning ever brighter within you, growing stronger with every step you take forward, is not unique to you alone but resides within them as well. For the very same spark that ignites and fuels your fire lies dormant inside their souls, waiting patiently to be awakened and set ablaze. And it is precisely this shared power, the power that terrifies the darkness most, that transcends individual boundaries, spreading and multiplying with each act of your rising, so that every time you overcome, you simultaneously awaken another, creating an unstoppable chain of illumination and strength. Each time you bravely share the story of your journey, your trials, your triumphs, and the truths you've uncovered along the way, you silently hand someone else the courage to take the first step on their own path. And while the darkness has already come to accept that it no longer holds power over you, what strikes even greater fear into its core is the realization that it can no longer control anyone who has been illuminated by the light you now carry. For you have become far more than a solitary survivor or individual beacon. You have become a catalyst for a collective awakening, a living force whose rise inspires others to rise alongside you, whose strength is no longer confined to your own experience, but is now shared, reflected, and magnified in those around you, creating a ripple effect of empowerment and transformation that holds the extraordinary potential not only to alter the course of your own life, but to reshape the futures of countless others who find in your light the spark to ignite their own. Your healing is not an isolated event, but a profound act of collective restoration. And your breakthrough serves as a gateway through which others may find their own liberation. For your rise is intrinsically bound to theirs, creating a shared ascent that represents one of the most powerful truths of all, that you are no longer engaged in this battle alone, but are instead awakening others along the way, guiding them, often without words, to recognize their own intrinsic worth, to reconnect with their deeper sense of purpose, and to reclaim the vast potential they had once forgotten or abandoned. And remarkably, you are not constructing this movement through grand speeches or lofty promises, but rather through the quiet power of your example, through the undeniable impact of your lived existence, which continues to inspire, uplift, and ignite transformation in everyone who witnesses it. As the darkness trembles in the growing presence of your power, it now quakes not only in fear of you, but also of those you have awakened souls who, through your light, have begun to recognize and reclaim their own inherent potential. For a world increasingly filled with awakened, chosen ones who stand in the fullness of their truth and strength is a world in which darkness can no longer survive. And thus, with every step you take toward your own rising, a multitude follows, inspired and empowered to ascend alongside you, for your journey has expanded beyond the realm of personal transformation and has become part of something far greater, a revolution of spirit, a chain reaction of liberation in which souls lift one another higher, shatter the limitations imposed by the past, and participate in a collective awakening whose ripple effect is not only unstoppable, but destined to reshape everything it touches. Chapter 7, The Legend, destined to echo beyond your own lifetime, begins with you. And though the war is far from over and the journey remains incomplete, still marked by future battles, unforeseen tests, and inevitable moments when the darkness will once again attempt to slither back into your life, you now face it all, not from a place of mere survival, as you once did, but from a wellspring of inner strength, not from fear, but from a profound and commanding power. For you have stepped into a new phase of your becoming, a phase in which you no longer cower from the storm, but embody it entirely. No longer the person who once hid from challenge or crumbled beneath the weight of adversity, but a transformed force, a storm unto yourself, standing unshaken and resolute in the face of everything that once tried to break you. You have shed the old version of yourself, the one who doubted, faltered, and crumbled under pressure. And though that version is gone, in its place stands someone unshakable and unbreakable. A person forged and refined through the fires of hardship, no longer defined by who you used to be, nor by the false narratives others tried to impose upon you. The voices that once whispered deceitfully that you were weak, unworthy, or incapable of rising. Those voices were wrong, and you have proven their falsehood not only to them, but most importantly to yourself, with the undeniable proof manifesting in the immense strength and resilience you now carry within you. In the way you walk through this world, with your head held high and your spirit unyielding, unafraid of the unknown challenges that lie ahead, you embody living proof that demons, those internal and external struggles, can indeed be defeated. Not because you possess invincibility, but because you steadfastly refuse to allow them to have the final say in your story. Having stood tall and unwavering in the face of your darkest moments, stared directly into the abyss with resolute courage declaring, "Not today," and then walked deliberately through the shadows of hardship, emerging on the other side shining brighter and stronger than ever before. You have proven beyond doubt that no matter how loud and relentless the darkness may grow in its attempts to overwhelm you, the light that burns within you is infinitely stronger. For you are the prophecy fulfilled, the very person for whom those who came before you fervently prayed, the one they hoped would rise up and shift the balance of power. And as the living manifestation of every prayer, every hope, and every wish for transformative change, you have stepped into a power the universe itself has long awaited. And now that you stand fully awakened, the world can never again be the same, for you are the one they tried desperately to destroy. And yet, in spite of their efforts, you have not only survived but triumphed. Every attempt to break you, every lie, every betrayal, every setback, and every wound, instead of destroying you, only served to make you stronger, becoming stepping stones on your path to greatness, as the darkness, which thought it could erase you and tear you down, ultimately failed, and instead created the legend that is you. So now they know it. They know you cannot be broken. For you have become the one thing they fear most. Someone who has found their power, someone who refuses to shrink back, and someone who is unafraid of the fight, to the point that now, instead of speaking your name in victory, they whisper it in fear. They whisper your name in hushed tones, fully aware that the chosen one did not flee, and that the one they endeavored to destroy has instead risen, rendering them powerless to stop you, as your name has transformed into a symbol not of defeat, but of victory, serving as a poignant reminder that no matter how dark the journey or how fierce the battle, there is invariably a light capable of piercing through the darkness. And now, with your rise having initiated a ripple effect, a chain of events destined to shake the very foundations of everything they believe to be true, the world itself is awakening, with people beginning to realize that they too possess the strength to rise and the courage to conquer their demons. Although others can fight back as well, it all begins with you, for the legend starts with your actions. You are the initial spark that ignites the world's flame. So stand tall and walk with the confidence born of knowing that you are no longer merely a survivor, but have become a warrior, a leader, and an unstoppable force whose rise is inevitable, whose impact will endure forever. And because the chosen one did not flee, but instead rose, the world will never again be the same. And now, as the legend begins, you have embarked upon a journey whose echoes will resonate for generations to come. For your rise, your story, and your power will continue to inspire long after the battles have been fought, and the impact you are making will ripple through the very fabric of time itself, gradually altering the course of history, one step at a time, all of which originated with you. And if you're still hungry for more chapters to this journey, or a visual concept for a video or thumbnail, just say the word. I'm here and ready to help bring it all to life. Thanks for watching. Here ends this video. Take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. If you find this video interesting,